Hey guys, Brig
Hello.
was taking out his aggression
I'm
this
sorry.
morning, I guess.
I'm just so excited about DNS.
Really?
I am, I know.
That makes one of you.
That's
All
good.
right. So, hey, anyways, obviously I'm Lex. This is Brig, and he punches pretty good. Kind of a pre-show kind of thing we do here. So we're going over happy, healthy DNS. I will say, I think you said it best yesterday, 80% of network problems are DNS, and
The other 20% are also DNS.
so let's fix DNS, guys.
Yep.
So should we jump right into it?
Yes, absolutely. All right.
So, brief history of DNS.
Yes.
I mean,
so-
really brief.
Really brief. 83. There was, well, actually,
83?
okay, ARPANET started, and it was a huge, it was just a host.txt file. That's all
Okay.
it was. That was name resolution. And it was one woman who you could call during business hours, and you'd call her up and say, I need this name associated with this IP address. And that worked for a number of years, and then in the 80s, it got too large.
Okay, so that was in the 70s, right? We're talking
Oh, yeah.
frozen bell bottoms, or we're
Yes.
talking disco?
Yeah.
Or both?
Either.
I think both. I think
Okay.
both. I think it
Depends
started
on what
with
you
bell
were
bottoms,
into.
then we transitioned to disco. And then it was DNS.
So it started when fashion was really, really bad.
Yes.
Disco.
DNS disco.
Yeah. Can I dance? No, we wouldn't do that. So, and then in 83 or 85, this guy was tasked with coming up with a system that worked between 5 competing systems, and he just said, I don't like any of them, I'm creating this, and created DNS. And that's where we get DNS. So it started in 85. And NetBIOS, coincidentally, also started in 83.
That was Microsoft's version, wasn't it?
Yeah. It started as kind of an IBM, and then they sort of took it off. And then they actually created, or they actually really ran with NetBIOS over TCP, which is what we have now. So it's really technically not NetBIOS, it's NBT, but we still call it NetBIOS.
So now we've given people some useless trivia.
Yes.
All
yes.
right.
If that ever comes up in a Jeopardy question, which it never will, there
You're
you
good to go.
You're welcome.
Okay, so basically with name resolution, some things you need to know. What's the order of how you get your name? I mean, where does it look?
Okay, so
specifically?
it looks first. It sees if it's itself. So if I'm doing a name resolution, it checks to see whether or not it's is it me? Is it 127.0.0.1? Am I that host? And if that's not the case, then it goes out and looks at the host file, which is in Windows, System32, drivers, etc. And then there's the host file in there.
Etsy?
Etc.
You know how Shane likes to say it?
Etc.
Etc. No, it's Etsy. Afterwards, there'll be more punching, obviously.
There'll be more, yeah. So, but hit the other side.
Yeah.
I already took care of this one. And then if the host file is empty or there's just nothing there for that particular name, then it looks at the DNS server. And kind of an important thing about the DNS servers is that you can have an entire list. You got 10, 20 DNS servers there. If the first server returns, I can't find it, it does not go on to the next DNS server.
Exactly.
It's just, that's it. No response, or if it gives it no response, it'll move on to the next one, but a no record.
Basically,
that's done.
yeah. If the DNS server's not there, it'll look to the next one. But as soon as it gets a no record found,
Yep,
done.
It's still done. It's not going to check them all. And then the last place that it looks is in the Windows environment is NetBIOS. So it says, hey, can I resolve this using a NetBIOS protocol? And it tries that. So it does do quite a bit. Okay.
All right, so let's talk about scavenging. Scavenging, okay.
Absolutely. All
So-
right. So we're going to pull up here, and this is our DNS server.
Okay.
So this is...
That's our DHCP.
Oh, that's DHCP. We're going to go to DNS.
Thank you.
Right here.
All right, so
DNS server. All right. So first thing you want to check, and you don't really need to check this simply because it's already by default, and you can tell this because you actually have timestamps, but it's always good just to make sure, 100% sure, that if you go to View, click on Advanced, and then you can right-click any of these, click on Properties, and then you will see delete this record when it becomes stale. It's
okay, so
checked.
once again, scavenging again is going to clean up your DNS when a record goes stale.
Yep.
Okay, basically you've got to have it set in 3 places. This is the first one.
First one. And it, like I said, it's on by default, but just check just to make sure. And if it's set for one, it's set for all of them. And if it's not checked and you do check it, it will check it for all of the records. But again, pretty much basically if you've got a timestamp column and it's populated, it's going to be all right.
Yep.
Okay, the next place you need to do it is on the actual zone record itself. And
Under Properties.
Properties. And where's right here? There we
Aging.
go. Yep. Okay, so kind of an explanation of how scavenging works. There's actually 2 parts to it. There's the aging part of it, and then there's the scavenging part of it. And aging is basically just how are we going to age these records? And scavenging is the actual part that does it. Scavenging is like task manager or like a scheduled task, where the scavenging part of it takes place at a set interval every X number of days or hours that you have set.
For all you
Aging-
out there,
Yeah.
it's like whiskey. You age the whiskey, then you drink it. Okay, the scavenging is the drinking portion
Drinking
of this,
part of
right?
it. So it's the fun part. Yeah.
Exactly.
This is just the aging part.
So aging,
Yep.
basically you got a refresh interval and a no refresh interval.
Yes.
They're both set the same. It's kind of confusing to me.
Yep.
Why do we set them?
Okay, so the no refresh interval is a time when a client that receives an IP address and registers with DNS does not or is not allowed by the DNS server to refresh their timestamp. It's only to do with the timestamp, not the IP address. So, for instance, like if I'm a computer and I go out and I say, okay, this is really great. I've got an IP address. I go out to the DNS server, tell the DNS server registers me. Every 24 hours, I'm going to let that DNS server know that I exist, and that this is my timestamp for that particular record. The no refresh interval is basically there to prevent a lot of replication, because every time there's a refresh, it refreshes the zone then has to replicate. So for instance, if I had 2,400 machines, I would have, if I allowed a refresh on all of those machines and it was timed perfectly, that would be 100 per hour, which means that was 100 records per hour would then force a replication of all the zones.
Propagate to all 2,400 machines.
Yep.
Eat up a lot of network time.
Yeah.
We don't want that.
A lot of network time. Yeah. So those zones populate to all of your DCs or all of your DNS servers. And of course, obviously, if you have a large infrastructure, multi-sites, and going over the WAN, that can result in a lot of increased traffic. So that's what the no refresh interval is for. Now, if that same computer gets an IP address or a new IP address, say like it goes off the network, comes back on, that's considered an update. So the update will go ahead and start the refresh interval again. It doesn't prevent it from putting in that new record. So no refresh interval is just about timestamps, just to prevent excessive traffic. The refresh interval, on the other hand, allows that computer to go ahead and say, hey, I'm here. And the DNS server goes, great, I see you again. And then it goes back into the no refresh interval.
Yep.
So that's all that exists. So if you want to set this, the default values are 7 and 7. If you want to limit or reduce that amount, you want to limit the no refresh interval, because it's better to have a refresh interval where the clients have the ability to access and update their records than it is to just have a no refresh interval that's longer than the refresh interval, because that doesn't really do anything. So you take a little performance hit with increased traffic, but you also don't inadvertently delete records that you want. So there we go. That's the no refresh interval.
So we need to set scavenging here then.
Yep. Just check that, and there you go. And then you can set these to whatever figures you want. I strongly encourage you not to set them below 3, but you can test this out. It depends entirely on your environment.
Yep.
The 7s are usually pretty good.
Yep.
Does it also? I mean, this. If you have DHCP settings,
Yeah.
really aggressive lease times, like 2 hours or 3 days. How would you modify that?
We're actually going there right now.
Yeah, we're actually as soon as we set up scavenging, we're going to go ahead and how DHCP lease times are impacted. By
I do know we have. Sorry guys, hey everybody, we have a lot of customers that have very aggressive lease time. They have
Yes.
more computers and they have available IP addresses. Time to change your subnet masks.
Yeah.
And so you'll drive. Okay, I want to make sure you're just touching that.
Oh yeah, yeah. We're going to definitely hit on a couple of things with DHCP that'll make this hopefully a lot better.
So those are our first two, and the last again is DHCP at this point.
Yep. All right, so we set up scavenging, we're good there. And we've done that on the zone. Now we're going to go to the server. This is the third check, and this is where we actually do the scavenging. So what we were setting up before was just aging. So go to advanced, enable automatic scavenging, and we can set this here to the scavenging period.
Now, Brig, 7, 7, and 7.
Yep.
I'm going to do the math for you because yesterday you were so bad at it.
I know.
That's 21 days, man.
That is.
So what exactly is that 21 days getting me?
So I have a machine that comes on the network. Machine comes on, it goes into the no refresh interval, 7 days. It stays there for 7 days. Then it goes into the refresh interval. Let's say that it's turned off. So it just goes through that 7 refresh intervals. The DNS server does not get an update on that, so marks it at that 14-day period as stale. Now, what happens after that is we get the what we call the scavenging period, and that's the total of 7 days. So within that 7 days, your record will be scavenged. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't mean that it's going to happen right at day 14. It could happen all the way up to day 21. Mm-hmm. So
14 days and 1 minute up to 21 days.
Yep. And you can actually compute this by going into the DNS events here and looking for 2501 or 2502. Whenever you see that time, you can do this timestamp, and whatever this is, plus the scavenge period, is going to be the time frame in which the next scavenging will happen. Because remember, scavenging is like a scheduled task. It occurs every
in this case,
whatever
7
period,
days.
whatever interval that is. Yep.
All right, questions?
First question of the day from Jeff L. Dear Lex and Brig. Wow, that's pretty cool to say. What about DNS records for a dial-in VPN record where you need very short lease times?
Hey, Jeff. Now, I see a couple of issues there. First of all, we see this a lot in support, right? It's
Yeah.
like I'm coming in on VPN and I've got DNS issues, right? I mean, depending on how your VPN client is set up, whether or not you're going to get that or, you know what I'm saying? So just being able to get to DNS is depending on your client. As for very short lease times, any thoughts on that?
You could do, very short lease times are fine, and it depends on also your address pool, so how large your address pool is.
Brig, what would you define as a short lease time?
Short lease time, anything about a day.
Yeah.
That would be a short lease time for me, would be a day. That would be really short, be a day.
Yeah,
I'd
day.
prefer a
All
little
right.
bit longer. Yeah,
A day.
longer.
All right. Okay.
If you can.
So, again, you're going to end up seeing a lot of churn there.
Yeah, and it sort of depends on how many addresses you have. If you have plenty of addresses so that you can have a client lose that lease and then renew that lease and lose that lease and renew that lease, you should be okay because it'll go ahead and it will update because the refresh record doesn't matter. It'll just update that in DNS, or it should.
So now, I brought this up just because this is one of the things we have done to help you guys deal with the fact that laptops coming on and off the system so much. And that's right here, test multiple addresses and the name resolution.
Yes.
So the nice thing about you check that is, you go out and there's 3 records for it. It'll check the first one, the second one, until it gets a response, and then, away you go. So that will solve that problem as long as the console is on the same netmask.
NetMask.
Okay.
Yes.
Shouldn't
There's
affect
that
many
little tiny
people. We
caveat.
have, I think we run into maybe one person who's got some stuff across that. But just a little caveat there, guys. That should help you out with those shorter release times.
Yep.
And the longer scavenging times.
Yeah, because then if you have multiple records in DNS, it'll check and see which one. Oh, I got a ping back from that one, and it'll resolve. However, there is kind of an important thing with that. In larger networks, you can take a performance hit on that. So
the short lease times?
Yeah, it's one of those things. Or no, on the multiple. Check multiple addresses.
multiple, yeah,
so
that
you
is
want
true.
to make sure that test it out first, see how it goes. But you can take a performance hit on that. So, all right.
Another question, Brie.
Okay.
Dear Lex and Brig, are there benefits and risks in doing a scavenging? And if so, what are they and how to avoid the pitfalls? What is the best way to do this with PowerShell? Weekly scheduled tasks? Sincerely, Chris G.
That's 2 questions.
Yeah.
So, what are the risks and benefits of doing scavenging? Well, scavenging is going to help clean up your DNS, which
Yeah.
keeps you from having to do it, which is always a good thing, right?
Yes, and it becomes increasingly riskier the shorter your aging and scavenging occurs. So, because you could have something, or you could have a machine that goes offline or goes to a home, anything like that, and then you actually scavenge that record and then they come back online. More so with servers probably, but your server should never be going offline anyway. But scavenging, you just want to make sure that you're kind of patient when you're doing it, just so that you're not deleting records so that you can always find resources.
Yeah.
So that's sort of the biggest thing.
Now, as for the best way to do it with PowerShell, you have to ask Chris.
Yeah,
that,
just
which
Chris
is-
that.
Just schedule it. You schedule it natively within DNS,
Yeah.
and you should be good.
Yeah, I guess that is true, yeah.
Yeah, you just do it that way. And then DNS command also is very helpful, and the executable is also very helpful in setting this up and making sure that you're only doing scavenging on certain particular servers and not other servers, because you only want scavenging on one server. Pretty much I do basically like the primary domain controller emulator. That's pretty much what I do. That's just far easier because aging does transfer over, is replicated, but the scavenging settings are not replicated across your AD zones.
You want to make sure you're doing that from one primary
Yep.
spot.
Yep.
Best practice there.
Yep. But the DNS command will also help you to be able to manage that too by checking out which servers are set and which aren't. So, all right.
Any other questions, or should we continue?
All right.
All right. So that's pretty much, scavenging. I guess the last thing is probably ought to check our DHCP. Take a look at
Yeah.
that.
Yep. So let's look at DHCP now. So, and this is kind of some important stuff with DHCP. All right. So by default, the settings for your and we're going to do this on the IPv4. This is a basic. This is what comes out of the box. Are these settings right here? So we've got the enable DNS dynamic updates, which is what we want, and dynamic update DNS records only if they're requested by the DHCP client. So this means that only if the client requests. This is kind of an important point too to remember, is that the DHCP server doesn't hold the record.
No.
The DNS server doesn't hold the record. The
client owns it.
Exactly. The client owns that record. So it belongs to them. So basically what you want to do is you want to set this to always dynamically update DNS records. So this tells the DHCP server, hey, I want to, or I've got this client, telling the client, I need your information, and I'm going to send that off to the DNS server. So that way you're always updating. And then another thing you want to do is do dynamically update DNS records for DHCP clients that do not request updates. And that's just a really long way of just saying just do dynamic updates.
Yep. Do dynamic updates.
And then you also want to discard AMPTR records when the lease is deleted. So then that way it just cleans up. It just cleans
Cleans up after itself, yeah.
Yep.
And so there's your settings there.
That's it.
Give it an OK.
Yep.
DHCP, make sure that the clients that are getting IPs are registering with DNS.
Yep. And now I want to go back to what Shane was saying about the
Lease
DHCP
times.
lease times and DNS scavenging. Probably, there's several different ways of doing this, but probably the most universal or the one that will work for the most people would be to set your lease times to be the refresh and no refresh interval, the addition of those two. So in this case, since we're using the default values, you would set your lease times to 14 days. Or conversely, you can set your no refresh and refresh intervals. Let's see where.
Your refresh intervals would be
Here we go, right here. So we'd have the refresh intervals.
those are, you want to match those.
And this. The addition of those two, so in this case 14 days, would be what your DHCP lease times would be. Or what you can do is you can take these down to, not hours, we don't want to do that. Since the default DHCP lease time is 8 days, you can take those down to 4. Yeah. Or you can do 3 and 5. Just, I wouldn't go just the opposite of that and do 5 and 3. And then that way, and then what you can do is once you've done that, then you can come over here and set your scavenging. 1 day. What that does is that basically says, okay, so I've got a DHCP lease out on this machine, and that machine goes offline or whatever, but it's still in DNS. It still has a DHCP lease tied to it. And what happens is after 14 days, that lease then expires, and then 1 day after that, it goes ahead. It becomes stale. The next day, it deletes that record. So that way you're not having like 21, or you don't have like 14 days of this record. So that's a way of being able to take your DHCP lease times and maximize them with scavenging, so you're not having all of these records out there. Freeze it up a little bit, so it's pretty good. It's a good way of doing it.
Dear Lex and Brig, is it a good idea to disable dynamic update in group policy? Sincerely, Syed N.
You definitely don't want to disable dynamic updates if you're doing scavenging on that. Yep.
Now, I will say it's always a good idea to do stuff through group policy, but I wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Nice plug for group policy there, Lex.
Can I say?
Group policy.
I got to say, speaking of group policy, Jeremy Moskowitz, when he was in here, was asking him, what's the biggest issue you see with all of your clients?
Yeah, the biggest external dependency that fails.
Yes.
And it's, his stuff works. DNS has issues. Our stuff, DNS will show issues, and you'll kind of see it using our product, but it's a DNS issue.
He wasted no time when I asked him that question. He said absolutely DNS. DNS is the biggest reason why, the most common reason why group policy issues arise.
Yeah.
80%.
80% of the time
I
it's
think
DNS.
It is old technology, and it's people just generally think that it can be ignored. And just something as simple as scavenging, Brig, you've seen this all the time. When our customers are like, oh, it turns out our DNS folks said they don't have scavenging enabled, and the biggest that computer mismatch error is that's the biggest cause for improvement there.
Well, I guess should we just show how we troubleshoot those
good
errors?
transition,
man? Thanks,
because
Shane,
thanks,
great
Shane.
transition. So
Look,
here we go. Target mismatch on bullet.
Oh, and of course, when you get these and you're trying to deploy this, that's probably like one of the most reviled things that you can see is target name mismatch. Like, what does that mean? Yeah, it could be terrible.
So basically, there's two basic tools that you can use to do this, and the nice thing is we put them in the tools library for you guys to use.
Yep.
One is nslookup.
Yep.
And the other one's nvtstat.
Yep.
Let's show them how we do these.
Well, do you want to explain kind of what NS?
Okay, so nslookup is kind of like, I want to go to Briggs' house, his computer. It's opening the phone book, and Briggs' place is here. I get the address from the DNS server, and it's right here. Okay, now if Brig has moved, someone else lives there, hasn't updated the address book, boom, I don't know. NBT stat is like, Brig lives here. I knock on the door to see if he's actually there. That's basically the two. So,
And instead it's Chris. It could be.
could be Chris, could be
Chris.
yeah. So
Could be Shane.
all right, so if you go to Tools, highlight your computer, go to Tools. We'll do a nslookup.
Yep.
Brig, I'm not seeing it, man.
Yeah, that's it.
There it is.
There it is. So if that, and it's fast, so fast. There we go.
So that's supposed to be at 99.81.
Yeah, 99.81.
Okay.
Okay, so remember that. Well, I'm just going to minimize this. So then we
Same
go.
thing. We'll go to NBT stat under Tools.
Another thing you can do is just Tools, right click. We haven't set up like a shortcut for this, but you can do that, and I would recommend that you do it too.
At BIOS by IP.
And there we go. Oh, what?
yeah.
Wait, now hold on. That's Makers. What was the other one? Shivas.
They don't match.
They don't match.
So obviously at this point,
Yep.
you know you've got a DNS issue.
Yep.
You need to
So-
go fix that.
Fix that.
in DNS.
Yes, and then conveniently, we have this. So we can go and look up your Shivas 81. And what was the other one?
I can't remember.
I can't either. I think it was
Pull up.
Makers.
Makers, yeah.
Yep. So we would actually want to, in this case, either use VNC, something with an agent onto it, or actually physically log into that machine and get the IP address information for that machine, and then go in and correct that record.
I would also flush your cache on your console
Yes.
before you do all of this. 'Cause
Yes.
Make sure you've got the most current,
And amazingly
DNS
enough,
cache.
we can do that here too. We can just do flush DNS record cache. Oh, sorry. And
And these are all in the tools library,
Yep.
right?
Tools library. So
tools.
okay, so our tools library, we decided to put some tools together that seem to be used by everybody, and just make it so you can actually go download those.
Yep.
So
they're all
you guys'
available here.
request, we've kind of done that. So
Yep.
actually, we haven't kind of, we've done it.
Yeah, it's actually one of the really coolest things of inventory are these tools, and we're going to be doing more. And it's sort of kind of opened the door for us to be able to add a lot of stuff in here. But yeah, you have a lot of things that we can import into that, so that's good. It's a good thing. All right.
As Martha Stewart would say.
Martha Stewart. How does Martha Stewart end up in IT?
Yeah,
Because
at all.
Brig just said it's a good thing.
Is that what,
He's been.
how do you know Martha Stewart? You watch a lot of Martha Stewart, or what?
I saw her live a few years
Dude,
ago.
Martha Stewart is actually one of the most preeminent DNS administrators around.
Is that what it is?
That's what she did in prison.
She's doing
Why do you think she went there in the
DNS.
first place?
Oh, I stand corrected.
DNS insider trading.
Do we have any more questions at this point?
Sure.
Dear Lex and Brig, are there any other common errors we will see in PDQ deploy/inventory when our DNS settings are incorrect? And how can we fix? Sincerely, Jeff R.
All right. The first one that comes to mind is the hostname not online, or the hostname not found. That's one of them. Typically, that's going to be kind of something or a computer that's been listed in. It could be either through AD, but has somehow been deleted from DNS. So we're not able to find that. We can find it through DHCP or through NetBIOS, but we're not going to do that if we have a DNS server that we're going to work with. So that's a common error. Another one
Obviously,
is
target name mismatch, which is huge. We see a lot of that.
And then, so
else you
then we
got
have
on there?
another one here. We have target computer offline, but there's one here.
And of course, I want to call out that you guys briefly mentioned this. A lot of times, it's because a new record, computers you got a new address. DNS has it, but the cache on the console machine, for performance reasons, Microsoft keeps that cache, referencing that cache. Sometimes you just have to flush that, and maybe you can show them how to. You pointed to that, but literally it is ipconfig/flush DNS. That's what that tool will do.
Yeah, that's basically, we'll do it. It's pretty quick.
Did I? Oh, look at that.
DBS.
Hey,
Wow,
I almost got it right on this keyboard. Oh, elevation.
Got to be an admin.
So you know what's going to be easier than doing that?
We'll just use our tools.
Just go in here, tools, flush DNS. There we go. And
Boom,
it's
done.
Done.
Yep.
Finished. And that way I don't have to open
Another reason is to use
command
tools
prompts.
because tools are going to open
tools.
elevated prompts.
Yep. So, yeah, flush that. And then it can, go, of course, get really complicated if you've got like a forwarding and a caching or DNS server out there, but we'll save that for another day. Because
Yeah.
I do think that we're probably going to do some more videos on DNS simply because there's so much that we could do with it. All right. You want to get into like some of the issues that we get
Yes,
sometimes?
by all
Or did we answer that question?
We did.
Okay, good. All right. Okay, so obviously we've dealt with some of the custom tools. VPN users was a previous question that came up, and this is something that we see a lot of. So what we'll see is we'll see VPN users that come in, they get a DHCP lease from a non-Windows, and they'll have DNS that is also non-Windows. What you kind of want to do in those cases is set reservations on your DHCP for those machines. It's kind of a manual process, but once done, it's
That will
good.
fix that, yeah.
Yep.
Set
And
that
that-
by MAC
Yep.
address, yeah.
And if you're using a bind implementation, it's great, but it also requires a lot of manual
Yeah.
infrastructure. So
Very
you're
true.
going to have to be doing a lot of maintenance on it. The nice thing about Microsoft's DNS, their implementation of it, is that it's pretty basic. It's hard to break. It's also easy to break, but depending on the circumstance. But it updates very well and does its own transfers on its own.
It's hard to break and easy to break.
Yeah, it depends on what you want to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
Yeah. It depends on how much manual input.
Yeah, okay, good
Yeah,
point.
the more manual input that you put into your DNS server, the easier it is to break.
That is
Yeah,
true.
So,
So automate it. Automate it so you don't have to do much.
yep.
Another thing that's kind of interesting, guys, we do have other videos out on DNS. I don't know, 5-6 months ago, we did a back to school and back to home, school
Yeah.
and back to work.
Yep.
Covers a lot of DNS stuff there. It's a great reference. What else we got?
I think that's pretty much basically it. I mean, yeah.
Let's hit some more questions then if we got
Yeah,
them.
we've got more questions.
Dear Lex and Brig, should you set aging on the reverse lookup zone? Sincerely, Kim Bodicus.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Isn't it set, once you set aging, it takes care of both?
No.
It doesn't take it?
Well, it takes, aging does. Okay, yes. I'm
Aging
sorry.
does, yes.
Aging does. Aging will set it up for all records. So aging is, remember, because aging is separate from scavenging. I mean, they're the same, it's the same thing, but they're different parts of the same
It's the same but different. Well, you're making me confused now.
I know. It's
I
the
love it.
same part, or it's yeah, okay. Anyway. There's aging and scavenging.
Yes.
Yes.
Aging's automatically set.
And I kind of
I
want to
guess show them the scavenging side of it then.
Okay, so the scavenging,
If you're going to set it up on the reverse lookup.
set it here. So scavenging is going to impact everything. So we're just going to enable scavenging when it occurs here. This is for everything. Now, if you want to set aging for all of your zones, you can go in here. Where am I? Set aging and scavenging for all zones. And then you can do this for all of the zones. So everything you set. Here's the caveat with that, is it will not do zones that already exist. They will only do it for newly created zones, except when you go here, apply these settings to the existing Active Directory integrated zones. So then it will apply it to everything. So this is kind of your one-stop stop, because you definitely, or one-stop shop. Is that?
It works.
Whatever. So basically what you want to do, if you want, because you want to scavenge PTR records, obviously, because those are going to become stale. And so your error records. So you could do this, and this will take care of everything for you. So it will do all of your zones, which is actually very useful.
Again, top level, let it flow down.
Yep.
You can also set it at the individual level.
Yep. And be cautious. Be conservative, and then you can be more liberal with your time frames.
Yeah.
If you're lucky enough to have a lab, you can test it in there and see how that works. If not, and you want to do it during production, just start out with defaults. Yes. I know your
Hey,
protection.
Brig and Lex.
Yeah.
I had this question once. I'm keen to know what Brig says. Some people will use the Windows tasks on each computer to have them run an ipconfig registered DNS. Yeah. Now, generally, I think this should hopefully be done by your DHCP and stuff. But what do you think about that? If somebody just pushes out a task for all their computers to register with DNS at a certain time every day or multiple times a day?
Well, so registered DNS does two things. It renews the DHCP lease, so you're going to increase traffic there. Not a lot, but I mean, and it's going to refresh it. It's not going to renew it. It's not going to like drop it like a ipconfig release renew. It's just going to refresh that DHCP lease, and then it will register with DNS. And that is a good way of fixing like a lot of issues. I wouldn't. send that out to everything is kind of one of those.
Use it judiciously.
Yeah, use it judiciously. I mean, you might want to include that in like one of the tools. Don't we have that?
You know, honestly, the right place to set that again is DHCP. You know, set it at the high level, and then onesie twosies. Yeah, you're probably okay, but I wouldn't do it across the board. It just.
But it is good. But it is a good troubleshooting tool. So if you do have like a machine that's out there that's misbehaving, and you do a register DNS, it will refresh that DHCP lease and will re-register with the DNS server. It basically tells the client, "I know you own the record, but give that stuff out. Don't keep it to yourself." So,
Sarah has a question about a boo-boo. What happens if you delete DNS records that you shouldn't have? How do you fix this?
put them back in.
Yes.
You can right-click and create an A record or a PTR record. PTR record's obviously not that important. It's more A records are more important. If you don't know what the IP address is for that, again, if you have an agent type system that you're going to connect to, like VNC or something like that, you can use that. If not, physically go to that machine or get into your hypervisor, whatever that is, and see that. But yeah, you just add it back.
Yep.
Yep.
And that would be registered with DNS.
Yeah, yeah. You can either use register DNS, or you can actually create like a static, or an A record, and do a new A record and put in all of the information.
Now, if you do a static record, it's actually not ever going to go stale.
If you use a static record, how does scavenging and aging handle a static?
Scavenging,
it walks right by, doesn't even touch
won't
it.
even touch
So
it.
be careful with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say register DNS.
Yeah, register DNS.
Agreed.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
We got another question? We got Brig right now. Like he and Martha Stewart, two masters at DNS.
That's true. I learned everything from her.
In prison?
Yep. How to set a table and DNS.
That's right.
It's a good thing.
It's a good thing. All right.
Hey Brig, what? I love the fact that you're on this webcast, buddy, because now I
do.
can put you on the spot, man.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Because
Thanks, Shane. My first time, and
that
so
gray beard betrays the age that you have been working in tech support. Can you tell us really quick any of the craziest DNS environment that you've seen? For something that's somewhat large, a 10 computer network doesn't count.
Let's see. For something large, not really. It was pretty basic. I mean, okay, well, if we go back to the bind days, so, I mean, do you want to go back to the bind days, the bind 8
I just
days?
want to hear a fun story.
Well, I don't have any fun
It's
stories
DNS,
about
man. There's no fun stories
I
about
know.
DNS.
Greg, you're the most boring person I've ever met.
DNS stands for do not smile,
Do
do not smirk. That's what DNS stands for.
not smirk.
Just
Have you seen I've seen customers that do not use reverse lookup. They specifically disable reverse lookup. What would be the benefit there, Brig?
there would be no benefit to that.
Is it laziness? Is it
Well, it's default behavior. So Microsoft doesn't create the PTR zone, or doesn't create reverse lookup zones automatically. You have to actually go in and actually create them because it doesn't think that that's important. I, however, coming from the bind days, think that reverse lookup records are very important.
Highly important, yeah.
So that I can resolve those IP addresses.
Those reverse lookups allow you to do a ping -A.
Yeah.
So that you can actually get a name of a machine that's on there.
Yeah.
Which allows for, guys like me and Brig to go find out who's doing what.
Yep.
on
so
the
for
network.
a lot of our customers that actually don't have control over their DNS, a lot of times they have to do a mother may I up to headquarters. They know they can ask. They know that they can ask for scavenging to be set. How would you recommend that somebody who's not a DNS administrator but does PDQ deploy, PDQ inventory, do a mother may I for requesting that PTR records or reverse lookups are created?
You take a bottle of this down to your sysadmin.
Okay.
Pretty much get whatever you need.
Awesome.
That kind of thing.
Bribe.
That's how I would do it. Bribery seems to work the best, I think.
Probably explaining the situation. I mean, and hopefully a lot of the stuff that we've talked about here, like no refresh interval and a refresh interval, kind of helps with you kind of explaining the situation and why it's important and what you're seeing. So basically, like, what is the behavior that you're seeing, how it can be corrected, because now you can properly diagnose it. So how it can be corrected and what you would have the administrator do. Kind of offer them a solution. Like, here's my problem. Here's the
You can
solution.
always say
Can you do
Brig
that?
said. Brig
Yeah.
and Martha Stewart said.
Yep. Give them the link to this video, timestamp it, and just here you go.
How about take a screenshot of some of those errors that they can do, of the mismatched record or a record not found, and say, hey, folks, this is causing us a problem.
Yep.
Because I
Fix
know a
me,
lot of our
please.
folks, they really do. They don't have control over GPOs, or they don't have control over DNS or DHCP, and they really have to do a mother may I.
Yeah.
Now, in an instance where mother won't. Okay, if you go and alter your host record on your console, you can take care of it that way. However, you run the risk again of that thing getting out of whack with everything else. So,
Yeah.
not the best way, but it's a way around it.
And I've seen that too. And when you get a host file that has information in it, and then you leave, and the next person comes in, and they have no idea that you've configured a host file, and they start seeing some strange behavior over time, it's very hard to troubleshoot where that information is coming from, because you can go to the DNS server and there's no entries there. The entries are correct.
That's the
or
reason we
incorrect.
brought up the order these things happen,
Yes.
so everybody knows.
Yep. Check them and make sure.
We have a question from Chad B. What is the best way to switch from static to timestamp DNS records, like for servers, to minimize disruption? Just do it fast?
Okay. I would definitely leave your server static.
Yeah.
There's so many issues I can see happening if that IP changes. So I'd leave the server static. Now, if you're going to go like workstations from static to that, I don't know. What do you think, man?
For workstations, just DHCP lease. Really,
It's common for servers, if you don't want to do static, to do a lease.
A lease or a
To do
reserve.
reservation.
That's true,
You
yeah.
do a reservation, because then you can still change certain aspects of your scope and have it apply to those servers, but those servers will always get that.
Yep.
If you do a reservation.
Yeah.
DHCP reservation really is kind of a cool thing that people should be utilizing, especially, again, for those VPN people.
Yeah.
Yep. Or you use IP helper. Never mind. We won't get that.
IP helper?
Yeah.
Okay.
Relay DHCP through your. Never mind.
So
Okay.
we've pretty much answered every possible question there is for
so.
DNS.
I think so.
Really?
No. No.
Hey guys, if you have any other questions,
Yeah.
I'm wondering, all of you watching there, how many of you guys have actually worked with Brig? He does, amazing support here. Brig, Jason, Josh, the guys. So, here, you got a face with the email.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, you're also looking at that, the good-looking one. So that obviously means not Lex.
Well,
Yeah.
that's obvious.
everyone knows
This
that.
is also the fellow that has completely revamped our documentation so that it no longer sucks.
Yeah.
Thank
In
you,
the process of.
It
still
only
much
kind of
work to do.
sucks, no? No, your documentation is
It's as good as your administration.
It's got that
How's
handsome.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Oh, harsh.
Yeah.
Don't be
Oh, so it's
self-deprecating.
epic.
Don't be
It's
self-deprecating,
epic.
Brig.
Oh, yeah, okay. Did I miss the memo today? Beat on Lex during the web? Oh, that's
No, that's
every
every
webcast.
day.
week.
Every
Webcast or
webcast.
not. Yeah.
You should be used to that since ninth grade, dude.
That's pretty much true.
That's great.
Well, guys, unless anybody's got another question, I think we pretty much
think so,
covered
too.
what we've got today.
Yeah. And like I said, we're probably going to, and I think JJ probably will agree, and if not, he'll just hit me afterwards, that we are going to do a series of, not webcasts, but videos
Videos on
on DNS.
DNS,
Because this is a good overview and kind of some good information, but I don't
great
want to do
reference.
some-
Based on our numbers today, we may just continue, maybe do a part 2 of the
Wow.
Okay.
webcast.
Yeah.
I think
This,
they
this
heard
might
Brig
be.
was going to be on
We
here.
might.
Wanted someone
It
good
might be
looking with
close to our record. I think our record was Jeremy Moskowitz's
that. No kidding.
webcast, but
Well, it's because the fact of the matter is DNS, because there's only a few moving parts, and it is one of the most overlooked and taken for granted systems, and that's why you have such bad DNS, is because people think, oh, I thought that was just kind of self-maintaining. No, there's still some nudges that you have to make.
Yeah.
Bad DNS, bad juju.
If we do
all
that,
around.
I'm going to go into DNS update
So-
proxy for sure. So,
Well, guys, what you didn't see earlier was Brig punching me, so when the camera's off, game on, buddy.
happen again.
okay. So yeah. So I'm ready.
Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you next week.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Brig, great to have you on, buddy.
Yeah. Great to have you too. Well, you're
Thanks
always
for
here.
joining our webcast today. Big congratulations to Jeff L. and Chris G., winners of PDQ swag. Send us an email at webcast@adminarsenal.com. We'll get that swag out to you. And don't forget, we're still looking for that PowerShell scripter position. You can find that information on our website as well, adminarsenal.com/careers. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you back here next week.